Imagine discovering on your wedding day that your partner's family harbors a dark, painful history of racism. Now, imagine that you're black. This is just the beginning of Zuri and Ethan's journey, a love story that transcends boundaries but is tested by the ghosts of the past. Hello and welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a powerful story. The first light of morning streamed through the curtains of a Boston hotel room where Zuri Johnson was preparing for the most pivotal day of her life. Her fingers trembled as she adjusted her veil, her reflection in the mirror not just a reflection of her image, but of the expectations and fears she was carrying. "Take a deep breath, darling," said Amara, her best friend since their Harvard days. "You look absolutely stunning." Zuri forced a smile, but the storm in her eyes couldn't be hidden. What if I'm not good enough for his family, Amara? What if they never truly accept me? Amara placed her hands on Zuri's shoulders, locking eyes with her through the mirror. "Zuri Johnson, you're an incredible woman. Successful, compassionate, and more than enough. If they can't see that, it's their problem, not yours." Her words brought a flicker of comfort, but the doubt still lingered. Zuri thought of her own family, especially her grandmother Esther, who had raised concerns about interracial marriage. "Are you sure you're ready for this, my dear?" Esther had asked weeks ago, her voice heavy with years of painful history in the American South. A soft knock at the door broke Zuri's reverie. It was Olivia, her younger sister, with a bright smile. "Hey, future Mrs. Prescott, ready to marry the man of your dreams?" Zuri chuckled, grateful for Olivia's infectious positivity. "Almost there. I just need a moment to pull myself together." Meanwhile, just a few blocks away, Ethan Prescott stood before the mirror, his excitement mixed with a sense of unease. His usual confidence was replaced with vulnerability. "You look great, man," said Alex, his best friend, adjusting Ethan's tie. "Zuri will be speechless." Ethan smiled weakly, unconsciously touching the prosthetic leg that reminded him daily of the accident that altered his life forever. "Sometimes, I wonder if she really knows what she's getting into, Alex. Marrying someone like me." Alex cut him off, his voice firm. "Someone like you? You mean an amazing guy who overcame everything to become one of Boston's top lawyers? Yeah, she knows exactly what she's getting into." Alex's words offered comfort, but Ethan's mind was elsewhere, on his mother, Catherine, and their tense conversation the night before. She had seemed nervous, almost guilty. "Ethan, darling," she had said, her voice shaking. "Are you sure about this? About marrying? Well, you know." He had cut her off then, frustrated by what he perceived as insinuation. Now, hours before his wedding, he wondered if there was more to her hesitation than he had initially realized. A sudden ring from his smartphone snapped him back to reality. It was a message from Zuri. "I can't wait to see you at the altar. I love you." The simple words cleared his doubts for a moment. He took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, and turned to Alex. "Come on, I've got a bride waiting for me." As the two groups made their way to Trinity Church in Copley Square, the air was thick with anticipation. The ceremony, intended to unite not just two people but also their families, cultures, and worlds, was set to begin. Guests filled the pews, their reactions a mix of joy, discomfort, and tension. No one could predict that this day, meant for celebration, would soon become a battleground for love, loyalty, and painful truths. The organ at Trinity Church began the wedding march, and all eyes turned to the entrance. Zuri, radiant in her white dress, walked down the aisle, her father, Dr. William Johnson, by her side. Every step was a mixture of joy and nerves, her eyes locked on Ethan, who was waiting at the altar. Ethan's heart raced as he watched Zuri. In that moment, all his insecurities seemed to fade. He remembered the day they first met 3 years ago at a civil rights conference in Washington, D.C. The connection had been instant, transcending race, background, and past scars. When Zuri reached the altar, Ethan held out his hand, their fingers intertwining, symbolizing their union. Reverend Michael Anderson, a longtime family friend, began the ceremony. We are here today to celebrate not only the union of Zuri and Ethan, but the power of love that overcomes barriers and defies expectations. As Reverend Anderson spoke, Zuri noticed something unsettling. Ethan's mother, Catherine, exchanged nervous glances with her husband, Robert. Zuri tried to push aside the worry, focusing instead on the vows she was about to make. Ethan went first, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Zuri, since the moment I met you, you've brightened. You've brightened my life in ways I never imagined. You saw me beyond my physical limitations, and you loved me for who I truly am. I promise to be by your side, to face every challenge together, and to build a future based on respect, understanding, and unconditional love. Tears welled in Zuri's eyes as she began her vows. Ethan, you've shown me the true meaning of strength and perseverance. Your love has made me a better person. I promise to be your partner in every way, to celebrate our differences and grow from them. Together, we will create a home where love overcomes all obstacles. The exchange of rings was an emotional moment, but both their hands trembled slightly, aware of the depth of the promise they were making. After being declared husband and wife, Zuri and Ethan sealed their union with a passionate kiss, greeted with applause from the guests. The joy was palpable, but some faces in the front row held a tension that no one could ignore. At the reception, the ballroom of the Fairmont Copley Plaza Hotel was alive with music, laughter, and conversations. Zuri and Ethan moved through the crowd, sharing moments of joy with their guests. But then, an unexpected conversation with Dr. Marcus Taylor, a family friend and professor emeritus of African American history, took a sharp turn. "Zuri, my dear," Dr. Taylor said with a smile, "I'm so proud of you. Who would have thought that Gerald Prescott's granddaughter would be marrying a black woman?" Zuri froze. "I'm sorry, Dr. Taylor, but who is Gerald Prescott?" Dr. Taylor's smile faltered. "Oh, well, Gerald Prescott is Ethan's grandfather. He was unfortunately known in certain circles in the 1960s for not-so-positive reasons." Before Zuri could ask more, Ethan appeared at her side, unaware of the conversation. "Hey, love, shall we cut the cake?" Zuri forced a smile, but her mind was racing. Why had Ethan never mentioned his grandfather? And what did Dr. Taylor mean by not-so-positive reasons? The rest of the reception passed in a blur for Zuri. As they danced their first dance as a couple, her mind was consumed by the revelation. The questions kept mounting. Why had Ethan kept this from her? And what did it mean for their future? That night, after the reception, as the celebration gave way to silence, Zuri found herself standing in the lobby of the hotel, her emotions tangled. She dialed Amara's number, her voice cracking. "Amara, I need you. Something's happened." Ethan, meanwhile, sat alone in his suite, his head in his hands. His mind was swirling with guilt, regret, and the fear that he had lost the woman he loved. Hours later, Zuri and Ethan found themselves face to face again. The weight of the secrets between them was palpable, but so was their love. "I need to understand," Zuri said, her voice filled with both pain and determination. "I was afraid," Ethan admitted, "afraid you would see me differently, but I made a terrible mistake not trusting you." As they talked, the day turned to night. and the weight of the situation began to settle between them. There were no easy answers, no quick fixes. But one thing was clear. They both had a long road ahead if they were to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. The next morning, as the sun rose over Boston, Zuri sat in the park where Ethan had proposed to her, grappling with the choice ahead. Amara sat quietly by her side, offering support without saying a word. Zuri's heart ached, torn between love and betrayal, her thoughts heavy with the question of whether they could ever truly move forward. And Ethan, pacing in his room with Alex, could only hope that time, patience, and honesty would be enough to heal the wounds he had caused. The question now lingered. Would their love be enough to overcome the secrets that threatened to tear them apart? "I can make us the couple we promised to be," Zuri said, her eyes lingering on their wedding rings. "I'm willing to try," she added, her voice steady but vulnerable. "But we need to do it together, honestly." Zuri and Ethan knew their journey wouldn't be easy, but they were determined to face it together, despite the challenges and secrets that had surfaced. The next day they confronted their families. Zuri started with her parents in Roxbury, revealing Ethan's family's painful history. While her father was furious at first, he eventually agreed to try to see the good in Ethan, and her mother offered her full support. Next, they faced Ethan's parents, the Prescotts. After much emotional conversation, his parents admitted their past mistakes, and Ethan pledged to confront them with love and honesty. After the family revelations, they finally went on their honeymoon to Martha's Vineyard, where they learned about the island's African-American history. They explored the island, discussed race and identity, and made a commitment to teaching their future children the full truth of their family histories. At a community event on race and reconciliation, Ethan courageously shared his family's past, while Zuri spoke about her fears and growth. Their openness sparked meaningful conversations about healing and building a better future. Months later, back in Boston, Zuri faced a tough decision when a colleague asked for her help with a racial discrimination case. Meanwhile, Ethan fought for a new program at his job. They both realized that their challenges were now about building the future, not just confronting the past. With each other's support, they knew they could face whatever came their way. They knew the path ahead would be treacherous, full of obstacles and moments of doubt. But they also knew, deep within their hearts, that together they had the strength to confront any challenge. As fall faded into winter, Zuri and Ethan pressed on, not just for their careers but for a future built on fairness and inclusivity. Every small victory, every shared moment of understanding, was a step closer to the world they dreamed of, a world where love truly overcame every barrier. Winter in Boston arrived with full force, blanketing the city in a thick layer of snow. For Zuri and Ethan, the chill outside only mirrored the heat of the battles they were waging, both in their personal lives and careers. One Thursday evening, Zuri sat late in her office, absorbed in the racial discrimination case she had taken on. The stillness of the night was broken by a soft knock on her door. "Come in," she called, without lifting her eyes from the documents before her. "Zuri, we need to talk," came the voice of Leonard Blackwell, one of the senior partners at her firm. Zuri looked up sharply. "Of course, Mr. Blackwell. What's on your mind?" Leonard closed the door behind him and sat down across from her. "It's about the Wheeler case," he began, his tone serious. "You need to understand the delicate position you're putting the firm in." Zuri's heart pounded, but she maintained her composure. "With all due respect, Mr. Blackwell, this case is critical. We can't turn a blind eye to injustice just because it's inconvenient." "Inconvenient?" Leonard chuckled darkly. "This case could cost the firm millions, ruin contracts, and tarnish our reputation. You're gambling with everything we've worked for." "What we worked for?" Zuri echoed, her voice rising. "I thought we worked for justice, Mr. Blackwell. Or does that only apply when it's convenient?" Leonard's face hardened. "Be careful, Zuri. You're talented, but not irreplaceable. Think carefully about what you're doing." As Leonard left, Zuri felt the weight of his words press down on her. She picked up the phone with trembling hands and dialed Ethan. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in a tense meeting at the rehabilitation center. His integration program had been approved, but with so many restrictions it barely resembled his original proposal. Frustration filled his voice as he argued, "This isn't enough. We're only scratching the surface of the problem." Richard Townsend, the head of the center, sighed heavily. "Mr. Prescott, we've already made more concessions than usual. Maybe it's time to accept the victory we've achieved." Ethan was about to respond when his phone buzzed. Seeing Zuri's name on the screen, he excused himself and stepped outside. "Zuri, what's wrong?" he asked, his concern palpable. "I think I'm about to lose my job." Zuri's voice trembled over the line. 20 minutes later, Ethan walked into her office, finding her staring out the window at the snow-covered city. "Hey," he said softly, stepping closer. Zuri turned around, tears in her eyes. "Ethan, what are we doing? Is this worth risking everything?" Ethan knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. "Remember what we promised. We face everything together. That includes the hard times." Just then, there was another knock on the door. It was Marcus Wheeler, Zuri's client. "Sorry to interrupt," he said nervously, stepping into the room. "I've come to tell you that I'm withdrawing the case." "What?" Zuri and Ethan exclaimed in unison.